So tell me, do you recognize this tune? Or how about this one? Depending on where you are from, you would probably recognize these tunes to be the theme song of an adaptation of the classical Chinese literature Journey to the West. The Chinese production was better recognized in Chinese-speaking territories and Southeast Asia, while the Japanese production was better known in Japan and the West. In this story, the Buddhist monk Tang Sanzang, who is often translated as Tripitaka, was accompanied by his three magical disciples, Sun Wukong, Monkey, Zhu Ba Jie, Pixie, and Sa Wu Jing, Sandy, to go to India to collect Buddhist scriptures to bring back to China. In most adaptations, Sanzang was depicted as cowardly, effeminate, and useless without his disciples. But in the real world, Xuanzang was actually a bit of a badass. He was a strong, independent monk, darn it! He needed no help from no magic monkey. Tang Sanzang was based on a real person, and he did go to India. So in this episode, we are going to talk about the real Xuanzang and follow along with him on a virtual tour across Central Asia to India. Xuanzang was born sometime in the early 600s. His original name was Chen Yi. Xuanzang was the name he adopted when he became a Buddhist monk, and Sanzang was a name he received later in life for his accomplishments. But in the novel, he received the name relatively early in his life, after assisting Emperor Tang Taizong solve a problem. So, to differentiate the real version to the fictional one, I will refer to the historical person as Xuanzang. Unlike the fictional version of him, where he was floated down a river due to family drama, the real Xuanzang actually had a relatively normal upbringing, despite him being a bit of a boy wonder. He was the fourth son in a family with a long line of scholarly tradition, and even at a very young age, he had already displayed a lot of his intellectual prowess and affinity for learning. He became a Buddhist monk not because he was discovered by monks by the riverside, like in the Journey to the West story. He was just invited into a monastery by his second brother, who was already a monk. At the tender age of 13, he once again displayed his intellectual prowess by being able to memorize all the contents of a book or a Buddhist sutra by the second reading. The idyllic life of this bookworm, however, did not last long. The Sui dynasty was collapsing, and a series of rebellions that would eventually lead to the establishment of the Tang dynasty ravaged the land. So he had already seen plenty of famine, war, and death in his youth. Yet, he persisted in spreading the wisdom of Buddha and gained quite a bit of renown through his lectures while he was a refugee. So Xuanzang was already a minor celebrity in China before he went to India. The reason why he decided to go wasn't because the goddess Guan Yin ordered him to go fetch scriptures in India. It was because he was a complete nerd, and he was perplexed by how the various Buddhist sutras contradict each other. So to get to the bottom of this, he decided for himself that he needed to go west to India, the land of Buddhism's origin, to discover the truth. In the novel, he would face various demons, trials, and obstacles. In the real world, he would also face many tough challenges, and the first one he had to face was the amorphous nightmare called bureaucracy. He couldn't leave China at the time because Tang Dynasty China was fighting a war against the Eastern Turkic Khaganate. So everyone who tried to leave the empire would be treated like a spy. So he had to do it on the hush. But he can't really do that. And here is the reason why. At the time, there were two main routes to India, one by land through Central Asia and the other one by sea through Southeast Asia. It was much easier to go by land at the time because the land route follows the well-trodden path of the Silk Road, the vast ancient trading network between Asia and Europe. It was easier to find guides and trade for supplies along this route. And there are also Buddhist communities where he could receive donations from. He could also receive more funds by advertising his intention to go to India to find the truth. So that's why his plans were found out pretty quickly. And he had to play a dangerous game of hide and seek with the authorities while he was in China. Luckily for him, he was like the ancient Chinese Forrest Gump. Wherever he went, people would be so inspired by his audacious plan to go to the West, they would go to great lengths to assist him. When he arrived at Yumen, the final gate that separated traditional China from the wild West, the guard not only let him through, he even provided him with supplies and escorted him for miles. To the west of the pass is the Taklamakan Desert, infamous for its harsh, arid environment, yet there are still settlements there that thrive, as they were sustained by oases and underground water supplies. Even so, travel was still very difficult, because unlike the novels, Xuanzang hasn't got a magic monkey with him. And he almost died of thirst a few times. Still, he persisted, and eventually he came across the sandstone hills of the Flaming Mountains. This location is the backdrop for an epic set piece in the Journey to the West novel, where Sun Wukong fought the Bull Demon King. Even without the magical duel, this natural phenomenon was still quite a sight to behold back then. Today, though, it's become a tourist trap, with tacky Sun Wukong performance every day. When the historical Xuanzang came through here, he also faced a trial, albeit a less violent one. The king of Gaochang, who ruled the region near Turpan today, was so enamored by his lectures, he showered Xuanzang with privileges and begged him to stay as the religious leader of his kingdom. But Xuanzang's mind was set on going to India to find the truth. So he had to go on a hunger strike to threaten the king to let him go. Distraught by Xuanzang's withering health, the king had no choice but to relent, on the condition that Xuanzang would stay in his kingdom for 3 years upon his return. To seal the deal, they swore an oath of brotherhood. This episode actually provided Xuanzang with a powerful patron that made his future travels much easier. He was given enough horses, servants, and supplies to last for 20 years' worth of journey. Most importantly, he was also given a letter of recommendation that gained him audience to various rulers, such as the Khan of the Western Turkic Khaganate. Departing from the hellish heat of the Taklamakan Desert, passing through the icy peaks of Tian Shan Mountains, he arrived at the verdant grassland of the Khaganate's capital, Suyab, which is near Tokmok, Kyrgyzstan today. Over there, he saw deers adorned with bells and rings, signifying that they belong to the Khan and should not be hunted. Later on, Xuanzang was honored with a feast. The Khan at the time was a devotee of Zoroastrianism, the ancient Persian religion that worshipped the everlasting flame. So they didn't sit on wooden chairs, which they believed to contain fire. They also drink grape wine here, which was quite rare for the Chinese, who usually drink grain-based wine such as rice wine. The Turks showed a lot of hospitality to Xuanzang, but the monk wasn't impressed by their freewheeling and free-drinking excess. So Xuanzang lectured them on his religious doctrine when he found the chance. Once again, another ruler was enamored by his teaching. The Khan tried to make him stay and also failed. Nevertheless, he provided the monk with more resources to continue his journey. In the novel Journey to the West, he was perpetually hounded by monsters that wanted to eat his flesh and gain immortality. So the courteous treatment he received everywhere was quite a major departure from the story. Still, not all his encounters were so happy-go-lucky. In Samarkand, he wasn't welcomed by the population who were devotees of Manichaeanism. Some of his followers were almost set on fire. But he was able to convert the king and set up a convent. This is practically the pattern that will keep repeating itself. Xuanzang didn't need any magical monkey. His silver tongue was quite magical by itself. Some of the brigands he met on the journey were even persuaded to mend their evil ways. But of course, Since this information comes from his biography, it may be slightly embellished because historically there wasn't a major shift in religion in Samarkand. However, Manichaeism is a syncretic religion that combines the elements of Zoroastrianism, Christianity, and Buddhism. So they may have mistook Xuanzang's preaching to be the doctrines of Manichaeism. This is just my speculation though. On the other hand, his accounts on Buddhist-related matters in India is highly precise and have proven to be invaluable historical resource for generations of historians. Anyway, Xuanzang's journey took him across some of the most magnificent sites of the ancient world, which we can no longer see today. On his journey to Balkh, he saw the legendary Iron Gate, which stood in the steep pass of a region that is Uzbekistan today. In Bamiyan, which is Afghanistan today, he saw the giant Buddhas, which unfortunately had been destroyed in 2001. Finally, Xuanzang reached Gandhara, which is located in Peshawar Basin today, Pakistan. This place had storied history, and its ownership went through a lot of hands. It was featured in the Vedas, conquered by Alexander the Great, became part of the Mauryan Empire, Kushan Empire, and so on. When Xuanzang arrived, he saw a lot of Buddhist stupas and statues. The statues in this region looked quite unique, as they were carved in the Greco-Buddhist style. You can see how they resemble some Greek statues. For Xuanzang, it looked like he was in the right place. As the ending of the Monkey TV series goes, the place of light, Gandhara, was the final destination. This is also where the story wraps up in the novel. But for the historical Xuanzang, this is actually just the start of his adventure in India, because he discovered that the once great community of monks is no longer here. To find the answers to his questions, he had to press on into the land of millions of gods. In keeping with the tradition of how the Journey to the West chapter ends, I will leave you with this hook. If you want to know what happened to Xuanzang after the novel and what he did in India, then listen to the next installment where everything will be explained. Anyway, subscribe to the channel, like, comment, and share to help boost the video. Until next time, stay cool, my bros.